Hello guys, my name is Luke. I'll be showing you my Azorius Agro deck today. And if you guys have any tips or pointers, I'll be glad to take them. Starting out here, 4 Champions of the Parish. A very good card in the early game. It gets 1+1 for every human that enters the battlefield under your control. And every creature I have in this deck is a human of some sort. Moving on to the second turn drops, I got one set of 4 Fencenaces and Azorius' Arresters. This card, at first when I saw this card I didn't realize how good it was. It's a 1/1 double strike. Yeah, big deal, but when you combine it with the silver inlaid dagger, it will get +3, and that will turn it into 4/1 double strike, which means if you can get him to hit your opponent, 8 points of damage, possibly on the 3rd turn. Especially if you're detaining his creatures with these 2 guys. And this is the 3/1 flyer detaining, and this guy will also detain. This 3/1 here also works well with the dagger. I mean, a 6/1 flyer. That's not, if you can get that in, that's 6 points of damage. Possibly on the 4th turn, possibly. Maybe. Yeah, about 4th turn. Then you have, then I've included the Angelic Overseer. It is a 5/3, and when you have another human on the battlefield, it is indestructible. 5 mana. This is kind of like a later end drop, to finish off your opponent. So hopefully, if you're using these creatures and you hit your opponent hard, you're able to kill them relatively quickly. And these are the creatures on my deck. Moving on to my instant sorceries, enchants, artifacts. I have 3 of the inaction injunctions. These are like detaining sorceries that allow you to draw a card. Pretty good card. 4 Faith Shields. 1 plain, instant. Target permanent you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. Can come in handy since a lot of these creatures only have 1 defense. If someone direct damages them or murders them with, if they're playing against a black deck, these cards can really save you a lot of pain they can deal you. 4 Bonds of Faith, also a human card. It can act as a pacifism or a +2/+2 creature enchant. I haven't really seen too many people playing with this card in tournaments. I mean, I understand that Oblivion Rings have some functionality that this card doesn't have, but I find this card useful since it can pump my creatures, or it can work against my opponent by pacifizing one of his. 2 Detention Spears. Very good card. This card is super good against the populate decks that people are playing with these days. You can Detention Spear all of their tokens away. Sphinx's Revelation. This is a late game card just to help you get a card advantage and gain some life back in the late game. And I've included in this deck 4 Nevermores. A lot of people don't like this card, but this card will save your butt a lot of times against opponents that this deck is really weak against, you know, board wipes. And the reason I have these instead of counters is a lot of people are playing Supreme Verdict, which destroys all creatures and it cannot be countered. You can Nevermore this card and they can't play it. Let's say if you have, you know, Champion of the Parish, Fencing Ace, and you get your Fencing Ace bumped up, and then they play this, you're pretty much you're hurt pretty bad. Hopefully you can play Nevermore to keep them from playing this card. I have it on my sideboard. This is my sideboard here. I have it on my sideboard just to take care. I don't know, just to have it there. Also, the Nevermores work pretty good against the. There's another card that people love to play with these days called Geist of Saint Traft. It's a 2/2 hexproof, but when it attacks, it creates a 4/4 angel creature token that attacks as well, and the token is removed at the end of their turn. The creature is hexproof, so you can't. It's really hard to kind of get rid of it, but you can Nevermore it to where they can't play it. Okay. Moving on to my sideboard now, I have an additional Bond of Faith, 2 Oblivion Rings, Bluster Squall. Now I wanted to really put this card working into my deck, I just didn't have enough room. The reason is that the Overload, tap all creatures. You know, tap all of your opponent's creatures, swing, do a full swing. I could imagine in my head that finishing off your opponent every time. I just didn't have enough room to include it, but my deck seems to be working fine as is. Rest in Peace. Rest in Peace. That's a good card to have in your deck these days, since a lot of people are playing Galgary decks. A lot of cards that's just people are bringing them back from their graveyard. That's a good card to use against that. And then up top, 4 counters. I would have Participates, I just don't have the Participate, so I put in a Syncopate to even out the 4 counters. The reason is, with this deck, you want to be playing everything you have as fast as you can. You really don't have enough time to be leaving mana out to afford the Syncopate. Really, you don't have enough time to leave mana open for any counters. That's why I'm not using the counter spells. But I do have them on my sideboard. So guys, this is the deck. Let me know what you think. Oh yes, I was going to show you some of my cards I thought. Oh yeah, my lands. My lands. These are my islands, and some plain, some basic. Now I do have these set of 6 non-basics. Pretty good stuff. And then I also threw in one of these. This is 1 colorless, but if you could pay for it, turns one of your creatures unblockable. You know, it's just a nice little surprise. The end game, you might be able to make, if your opponent is giving you trouble, you might be able to make one of these guys unblockable, finish them off. Now these cards right here I thought about putting in, but they did not make my sideboard or my main deck. Martial Law. A lot of people like this card, but I found that it is too slow. You play it, but it doesn't detain until next turn. Your next upkeep. These creatures detain when they come into play. That's a big deal. And it's 4 mana. Most of the time on a 4th turn with this deck, your opponent is almost dead. Cyclonic Rift. Seems like a really good card. but to overload it and return all of their creatures to owner's hand, I have never been able to pay that mana cost in the game. Either I lose or my opponent loses before I even get that much mana, enough mana to pay for that. Arcer's Elecutors. A lot of people love this card, but to win the game effect this card has, it's too hard to pull off. Now, I was playing with the Sealer of Secrets. Whenever it deals damage to a player, you draw a card. I was combining that with the Guild Mages. I was giving these guys flying and attacking and getting card advantage over my opponent. I decided to take it out because I didn't really need it, and it's kind of like a pricey combo to get both of these guys out, and this is a 3 mana card. Righteous Authority. The reason I took this card out is most of the time with this deck, my hand is empty, or almost empty, so it doesn't really get much advantage of the 1+1 for every card in my hand. And Fab lands, most of the time my opponent's going to be dead, so who cares about drawing cards at that point. This guy, he's a great guy. I ran him a couple of times. He's a 6/4. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, you may draw a card. I decided not to have this guy because he's more of a defensive guy. Notice whenever a creature attacks you, it doesn't say whenever a creature you control attacks. I mean, he's more of a defensive guy, and this deck isn't defensive, it's aggro. Target creature gets 2/2 and gains first strike until end of turn. I thought about adding this. I love cards that kind of surprise your opponent, kind of throws them off. He might be attacking you with a 4/4, and you might have this guy out. But if you play this, you can kill his 4/4 and surprise him. Really turn the tide sometimes. And then if I didn't have these rare lands for a while, I was running these slow lands. And if these are all you got, I mean, run what you have, man. There's nothing, these cards are decent. And that's that. Thank you for watching. And again, if you have any pointers or tips for the deck, please leave a comment below. Bye.